Nobody saw it coming. Marcus Chen had been working 3 jobs in Seattle for the past 4 years, his hands calloused and bleeding, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights, all for the people he loved more than his own breath. His father Robert lay in a hospital bed at Harborview Medical Center, his kidneys failing slowly, the dialysis machines beeping like a countdown to something Marcus refused to accept. His younger sister Emily was 22, engaged to a good man named David, and she deserved the wedding she'd been dreaming about since she was a little girl, the kind with white roses and string lights, and a dress that made her look like she was floating. His mother Susan worked as a cashier at a grocery store on Capitol Hill, her fingers arthritic, her smile tired but still warm, still hopeful that one day things would get better. Marcus was 28, tall and lean, with dark circles under his eyes that made him look older than he was, and he had a girlfriend named Rachel who worked at a coffee shop downtown. A beautiful woman with auburn hair who loved him despite the fact that he could barely afford to take her out to dinner. They'd been together for 3 years, talking about marriage in whispers late at night, but Marcus always said soon, just wait a little longer, and Rachel always said she would. He worked as a delivery driver during the day, a warehouse loader in the evenings, and on weekends he bartended at a dive bar in Georgetown where the tips were decent if you could tolerate the drunk regulars. Every dollar went to the same places: hospital bills, wedding deposits, groceries, rent for the small house in Rainier Valley where his family lived. Marcus himself lived in a studio apartment the size of a closet, with a mattress on the floor and ramen noodles in the cupboard, and he told himself it was temporary, that sacrifice was what love looked like. Then one Tuesday morning in March, something changed. Marcus was sitting in his car outside the warehouse, counting the cash from his bartending shift, when his phone rang. It was an old friend from college, Tyler, who worked in tech and had made it big with some startup. Tyler said he had an opportunity, a chance to invest in a small logistics company that was about to expand, something that could turn into real money if Marcus was willing to take the risk. The amount needed was $30,000, everything Marcus had saved over 4 years, every penny he'd been holding onto for his father's surgery, for Emily's wedding, for the down payment on a better house for his mother. Tyler promised it was safe, that the returns would be incredible, that in 6 months Marcus could triple his money and finally give his family everything they needed. Marcus sat in that car for 2 hours, his hands shaking, staring at his bank account on his phone screen. He thought about his father's pale face, about Emily trying on wedding dresses at thrift stores, about his mother's hands swelling up after 8-hour shifts. He thought about Rachel waiting for him, about the ring he'd been saving for, about the life he wanted to build. And then he made the decision that would change everything. He invested it all. He quit 2 of his jobs to focus on learning the business, spending 18-hour days at the logistics company office in Bellevue, meeting with clients, studying shipping routes, working with Tyler to make the company grow. For 3 months, it seemed to be working. The company landed 2 major contracts, revenue was climbing, and Marcus started to believe that his gamble would pay off. He told his father about it one afternoon at the hospital, holding the old man's thin hand, promising that the surgery would happen soon, that everything would be okay. His father smiled weakly and said, "I'm proud of you, son." And those words felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Emily's wedding was scheduled for August, and Marcus promised her it would be perfect, even though the deposit was overdue and the venue was threatening to cancel. His mother asked him if he was eating enough, if he was sleeping, and he lied and said yes. Rachel started asking when they could talk about their future, and Marcus kept saying, just a few more months, and he could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. Then came June. The logistics company lost one of its major clients due to a contract dispute, and suddenly the projected profits vanished like smoke. Tyler started avoiding Marcus's calls, and when they finally met in person, Tyler admitted that the other investors were pulling out, that the company might not survive. Marcus felt his chest tighten, his vision blur, but he pushed forward. He took out a loan against his car, borrowed money from friends, worked day and night to find new clients for the company. His father's condition worsened, the doctors saying the surgery couldn't wait much longer. Emily came to him crying because the wedding venue had given their date to someone else. His mother found him passed out in the kitchen one morning from exhaustion and malnutrition. Rachel finally broke down and told him she couldn't do this anymore, that she loved him but she felt like she was dating a ghost, and she walked out of his apartment with tears streaming down her face. Marcus barely felt it. He was too numb, too focused on saving the company, on making the numbers work. Then one Friday night in July, Tyler called. The company had secured emergency funding, a new investor from California who believed in their vision. They were back on track, and Marcus's share would be worth over $90,000 by September. Marcus hung up the phone and cried for the first time in years, sitting on the floor of his studio apartment, his body shaking with relief. He called his father at the hospital and told him the surgery was happening. He called Emily and told her the wedding was back on. He called his mother and told her she could finally retire. He tried to call Rachel, but she didn't answer. The next morning, Marcus was driving to the hospital to see his father when his phone buzzed with a news alert. There had been a fire at a warehouse in Bellevue, the building that housed the logistics company. By the time Marcus got there, the entire structure was gone, nothing but twisted metal and ash, and the smell of burning plastic. Everything was gone, the servers, the contracts, the investor documents, everything. The company was finished. There was no insurance payout large enough to cover the losses, and the California investor had already pulled out. Marcus stood there in the smoke and heat, his ears ringing, his legs going weak, and he realized that he had nothing. No money, no job, no business, no future. He had sacrificed everything, his savings, his health, his relationship, his time with his family, all for a dream that had burned to the ground in a single night. He drove to the hospital in a daze, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white, and when he walked into his father's room, Robert was asleep, the machines still beeping their steady rhythm. Marcus sat down beside the bed and put his head in his hands, trying to figure out how to tell his father that the surgery wasn't happening, that Emily's wedding would have to be postponed again, that he had failed them all. He sat there for an hour, maybe more, until a nurse came in to check on his father. She looked at Marcus with kind eyes and asked if he was okay, and Marcus just shook his head. The nurse sat down across from him and said something that cut through the fog in his mind. She said that earlier that week, a man had come to the hospital asking about Robert Chin, saying he wanted to pay for the surgery in full, anonymously. The hospital had tried to refuse, but the man insisted, leaving a cashier's check for $60,000 with instructions that it be used only for Robert's treatment and recovery. Marcus stared at her, his mouth open, unable to process what she was saying. He asked who the man was, but the nurse said she didn't know, that he'd worn a baseball cap and sunglasses and refused to give his name. Marcus's mind raced through possibilities, old friends, distant relatives, someone from the past, but nothing made sense. Then the nurse mentioned one detail that made his blood run cold. The man had asked about Marcus specifically, had asked if Marcus was still working 3 jobs, if he was still sacrificing everything for his family. 2 days later, Marcus received a letter at his apartment, no return address, postmarked from Portland. Inside was a single piece of paper with a handwritten note. It said, "Marcus, you don't remember me, but I remember you. 10 years ago, when you were 18, you stopped to help a man who had collapsed on the street in the University District. You called 911, you stayed with him until the ambulance came, you even rode with him to the hospital. That man was me. I was homeless, addicted, dying, and you treated me like I mattered. You visited me twice after that, brought me food, talked to me like I was human. You gave me $40, all the money you had, and told me to use it for something good. I used it to get into a shelter, then a treatment program, then I rebuilt my life. I'm a contractor now, I have a family, I'm sober 8 years. I've been looking for you ever since, wanting to pay you back, and last year I finally found you. I've been watching from a distance, seeing how you sacrifice for your family, seeing you destroy yourself to help the people you love. Your father's surgery is paid for. Your sister's wedding, I've paid the venue directly. It's taken care of. Your mother's house, I've paid off 3 months of rent. And there's more coming. Check your bank account. You gave me my life back when I had nothing, and now I'm giving you yours. You don't owe me anything you never did. This is what kindness looks like when it comes back around. Take care of yourself, Marcus. Your family needs you alive and whole, not broken and empty. Marcus opened his banking app with trembling fingers and saw a deposit of $50,000 made that morning from an anonymous account. He dropped the phone, his chest heaving, tears streaming down his face, and he realized that the small act of kindness he'd shown a decade ago, something he'd barely even remembered, had just saved his entire family. His father got the surgery 2 weeks later and made a full recovery. Emily had her dream wedding in August with Marcus walking her down the aisle, both of them crying happy tears. His mother retired from the grocery store and spent her days gardening in the backyard of their paid-off house. Marcus used the remaining money to start a small nonprofit helping homeless people in Seattle get into treatment and housing, honoring the man who had saved him by doing the same for others. He never found out who the man was, despite searching for years, and he never received another letter. Rachel came back to him 3 months later after hearing the story, and they got married the following spring. But Marcus never forgot the lesson. Sometimes the things we do when no one is watching, the small mercies we show to strangers, the kindness we give without expecting anything in return, those are the things that come back to save us when we need it most, and the greatest inheritance we can leave behind is not money or success, but the memory of a moment when we chose to see another person's humanity and act on it. Because in the end, we are all just one act of kindness away from either salvation or destruction, and the choice of which one we create is ours alone.